Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Menino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hi, everybody. This is Michael Menino, and welcome to Driven Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, we're interviewing professionals who share their experience with you, the audience, and how they got to where they're at today. And zooming from the beautiful islands of Naples, Florida, we got Ben Macgowen. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing fantastic, Michael. Thanks for having me on today.
Well, thanks for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Taking out your time to share your information with the universe, basically. This is awesome. Ben, we were talking off camera. Can you tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing and how you got to where you're at today?
Sure. To shorten it up or keep it focused, today I am the Chief Operating Officer of High Five ABA. We're a franchisor of insurance-funded ABA practices based in Warrenton, Virginia. I live in Naples, Florida, and originally from Boston, but been doing this for 6 years here in my career, learning this new business, fascinating field, which is most rewarding because the work is significant that's done helping these children and families. So it allows me to take my business experience, my lifetime business experience, and apply it to something that's got very great purpose. And it's a very fascinating, very dynamic industry. So very happy where I am right now.
What's the purpose of ABA?
So ABA is applied behavior analysis. Basically, it's working with children on the autistic spectrum to help them with their behaviors. People are familiar with some things about autistic children. They have problems with communication. They have problems with relationship. Because they have problems to communicate, their inability to communicate might lead to something like damaging themselves or damaging property to get attention because they don't know how to properly ask. And they'll get a diagnosis generally when they're coming into school age, when the teachers can see the problem. So they get a diagnosis, then they go to a BCBA, which is the primary engine of ABA practice, and they get an assessment. The assessment basically identifies the behavioral issues that the autism is causing, or the autism spectrum disorder. And then you come up with a plan to address those behaviors that are most socially significant. So they're helpful for that child to get something, and the results are proven. So it's not really a mystery. They're absolutely academically measurable, proven results that they get. So that's what ABA is.
Awesome. That's great work. It's very noble work. And if I heard correctly, autism is on the rise for the last 20, 30 years, exponentially.
It is, and you'll hear the statistics. I believe that when I came in, which was 2019, it was something like 1 in 64 kids, and then I saw it go down to say 1 in 54, and now I've seen things like 1 in 32. And at the time I was thinking about it because I was thinking about, even in my own life, and probably a lot of people that have been here a few years remember, now wait a second, I'm familiar with autism and other disorders, but neurodiversity, no, it wasn't so much for it. So where is this all coming from? And we even see today it's controversial. People talk about vaccinations and things, and I'm not going to get into that because I'm not a scientist. I don't really know. But I do know this, that ABA specifically we do is so useful for helping a number of things, that I believe that the diagnosis, it's not purely autism, it's spectrum disorder. So people will think that the autism diagnosis is going up, but it's the autism spectrum. And because the treatment plan, the insurance companies are able to address it through the ABA, that diagnosis is getting broader. Does that make sense? It's like some of these issues existed before, but there was no way to treat them. But now the insurance companies have found a way to treat it through ABA. So the spectrum's getting wider. And so people just think that's autism, but it's a lot more than just autism. Is that helpful?
Yes. So I think I know somebody oh God, there's another term in I forgot what it was, but it recently got filed into autism, but it wasn't autism 5 years ago. And I forgot what it was. But
I
I know
wish
what
I
you're
could
seeing
help you
by
with that term, but there's a bunch of those sort of things, like I say, a Tourette syndrome or those kind of things that will suddenly get
right,
thrown into it, and they're different, but they'll be bundled into it because it basically results in a behavior. For example, ABA, it's very important to understand, ABA doesn't cure autism. It helps with the behavior. It helps the person learn how to behave in a way that's useful to them in life so they can have jobs, they can live independently and have relationships. So that's what it is. But there's no cure per se for autism. That's not what ABA does. Just helps. It's something that's very effective on behaviors.
mostly a treatment.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, beautiful. Um, in what you do, is there a lot of competition that help out autism? Because, it's on the rise, so there's a lot more people coming into the space.
There is a lot of competition per se, but there's some pretty interesting dynamics in. So even just say 6 years ago when I came in, it was said it's a supply and demand imbalance. There's a lot of children on the spectrum, a lot of people wanting services, and there's not enough people providing. And that's been closing. There's in certain markets, there's enough provision, right? Providers for it. But honestly, there seems to always be room for someone to come in because it's also a human business. So if a clinician is very effective, they'll get a reputation, say, at a school district or within a family group, and that person can start treating some children and they can build a business, and it doesn't seem to go. And the other factor that's a problem in the industry is burnout, because it's a high pressure, high stress field. And so people don't tend to stay in at that sort of like in the trenches past their 30s, right? So people that have been in this for 10 years or whatever tend to want to be looking for other ways to apply those skills. So ABA, for example, has a corporate component called organizational behavior, or OBM. And people will move, they'll take their ABA skills and they'll move out of ABA. So they just take even though they're a good clinician, they want to
Mhm.
get out of the field because it is high stress to stay in it. And that factor continues to take supply of the providers out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, your workforce would be limited because of burnout.
It's a real challenge, and there's two levels. So anyone that, and a lot of people know this now, but ABA, the two primary components are you have the BCBAs, who primarily are supervisors who are experts in autism, certified, highly trained, very intelligent people. And there's RBTs, which only need a high school, a diploma, and certification to actually do the work on the ground. But they're supervised. They work one-on-one. They don't oversee multiple cases. But there's something called pairing. So if we have a child that comes in and needs services, they need to pair with an RBT to receive the treatment. And those
Gotcha.
RBTs, the turnover in that field, that's tough, and it's not for everybody. And a lot of people, like, they might have a heart, they like working with kids. A lot of people come out of the education background, then they'll come out of the special needs, and they'll try it. They'll say, I'm fast. A lot of people are fascinated by it. So they get involved as an RBT before they become a BCBA. They'll go out and get their undergraduate degree. They need to get a master's in psychology with the ABA, and then they have to take the certification, which is the BACB runs the certification. That's the certification board. So that's the thing. But in terms of like just staff burnout, the turnover is a very, very big challenge for anybody in this business. Everyone's going to know that. RBT turnover, and people are very concerned. You start getting into those areas like, say, work-life balance, and how do you make it be a better position? Or do you just become sort of hardened and say, oh, we're just gonna have to turn these people through here, which happens at a lot of practices. So someone like, say, High Five ABA, we're always looking for qualitative ways to make the career better, more rewarding. We're not alone with that. There's a lot of great ABA firms that also have those same initiatives and desires to make it a longer term career.
Gotcha. Um, if somebody listening to the podcast wanted to get better at what you do, what would you suggest to them? What tips and tricks would you give them?
In terms of what I do in my role as COO, I would say that the COO role is an overall awareness of your organization and how it works together. You're more like a conductor of the entire operation. So you need to have familiarity with the trade, but you don't have to be an expert of the trade that you go in to operate. But you do have to be aware of it. But you certainly have to be aware of when you look at, say, deficiencies or issues within the organization as a COO, like what's the priority, right? What needs to get fixed first? And if you do fix one piece, it will absolutely throw some imbalance to the next piece that needed the next. So if you had three priorities, say, hey, we're going to take care of a human, resources issue, that's going to throw off finance this way, and we're not investing in marketing, so the sales and marketing people are going to get upset. And you have to see how that works. And also the internal communications that you have to really sort of be a big project manager to be a COO to make sure that people know what the priorities are in the organization, what's going on, and make sure that everybody's on the same page constantly towards the company's mission. If that would be what I'd say, is to understand that you need to have control of the entire picture.
Right. I like the conductor part. You're the one running all the artists. That's a great analogy.
And they are artists. They're probably better. The people that run our departments are all better at what they do than I am, but they're very focused on what they do. They're not really watching the other people. Of course, some of them are watching, and those are people probably who are moving up career pathways to higher levels of management. But you do see people like teachers who don't want to become principals and things like that. So the COO is more like, say, a principal versus being a teacher in an educational format.
I like that. I like that a lot. So I noticed that everybody in business has had challenges. This is a tough one. What is the biggest challenge you had, and how have you overcome it?
I think it's it's understanding something like understanding what today is popular, the work-life balance. So if you're looking at business, and say you go into some popular format like LinkedIn and you look at the discussions, there's a lot of sort of wonderful altruistic stuff about work-life balance in there. And you just have to understand in business that there are people that know that they can run a business without it. Like if you're highly profit-driven, you can skip all the ethics and all the altruism and just make your payroll and pay people, and they're going to come work. And if you know how to treat your customers, you're going to do okay. So there's corporations out there that don't have it. And if you're going to go into a company, you have to be aware of it. So I'd say for my challenge, like I am a person who has a lot of empathy for people in general. But you learn in time that some people will take advantage of your empathy. And in business, you are absolutely you have capital responsibility, fiscal responsibility for the value of that business. The CEO of the business and the owners of that company are hoping that you're taking care of their investment. And so you have to understand that the work-life balance comes in between there. There actually is a capital responsibility that oftentimes will look like it's going ahead of people. It's not people first, it's profit first. You have to find that place in yourself to do it. And I'm not saying that's easy for everyone, which is why some people would probably prefer to remain in an expert role, just using their merit to generate their income. But if you want to move up the ladder, you've got to strike that balance between profit and people. And I would say that was a challenge for me for a long time.
How did you overcome it? Just doing it?
I would say, hell, it's a maturity process, right? Like if you are stubborn, some people may not want to overcome it. And I would say there's no bad in that. I would say if you don't want to overcome it, but I think that you're going to go into business and think that you're going to be able to do something new. Like, for example, like in a commodity type business, there's not as much room to provide employee benefits, right? So there's different industries. If you're doing something new, like say you were at the beginning of Yahoo or Facebook or something, or Google, when you had those sort of, like, for people who were really old like me that remember the dot-com age, there was such a very relaxed attitude towards work because there was this competitive advantage of IT that allowed people with those skills to get into companies that were going to get stock options and things like that. But when you get into a highly commoditized business and you're competing, it's a little rougher, right? So you're like, hey, we need health insurance, we need 401ks, I need a shorter work week. It's like, I just need you to come work. And, it just depends. Like, how do you overcome it? I think it's a very individual decision, Michael, in my
Oh,
assessment.
that's a good answer. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
It is individual. What works for you?
Yeah. And it's
Sounds
real.
good.
It's
Yes.
not, it's real. Yeah.
Everybody finds their own path.
Mhm.
Sounds like things are going pretty well for you in your business. And looking forward to the future, can you give anybody some tips and tricks on creating passive income after you learn how to make money?
Oh, gig economy. So, like in our company, for example, we have a vision. We have two groups. On Thursday, we have the company meetings. It's divided in two places. We have something called the company culture meeting, which is an all hands on meeting. And then the alternating week is called vision. And our CEO leads a book group. And we just talk about things like, we just finished reading Peter Thiel's 0 to 1. And we'd love for people to apply that to their work at our company. But our desire in terms of, like, for people who want to come to learn about a question, like, say, you're asking if they want to talk to senior leadership in our company, that's the time. And we're always encouraging people to do something interesting or have a gig or learn something. Conversation you and I are having earlier about AI,
Mhm.
you're crazy, or even social media influencing everybody in a sense. Maybe you ought to be looking at social media influencing for positioning themselves in an age of AI, like having your content, understanding what it is, because your content, like your attitudes and your opinions, is what your agent's going to look at in the future. So people creating content about themselves through, say, social media influencing is a good way to start developing your persona. But I would say for people going in, when I look at people, for example, my wife was married for 39 years. I lost my wife to cancer. I got remarried
Oh, I'm sorry.
about 3 years ago. And she's from Peru. They've been here for 25 years. And they're very, very smart people. But they didn't come with the language. They didn't come with the local degrees. They didn't have the advantage, but they all came with hustle. And I'm infinitely impressed how many of these people have owned real estate. If you own assets, you're going to make more money in your real estate holdings probably than you are in your salary working for somebody else, right? So understanding equity, how do you get equity? Well, you get equity in owning your own business. So we would, at our company, we would always encourage people. Of course, we want them to be available to us all the time. But if they say, like, hey, I've got a catering business, a gig on the weekend, I'm doing really well in my marketplace, we're like, good for you, because it doesn't really hurt your corporation. And they could leave you, but we've had people that turned over in our company and they're welcome to come back because they're such good people. They leave on good terms. But we're not trying to stop people from being personally successful. I'd say a benefit of our company is that we want them to be successful. We hope it's with us, but we're going to encourage them to make sure they're successful in their life. So that would be my view on gigs and working. There's a lot of opportunity out there for people who want to put in that extra time.
Agreed. Agreed. When your side hustle becomes your main hustle.
It can happen. I mean, it's
It
pretty
does.
amazing. For example, we had an employee that's still with us that made something and it kind of went, I'm going to say, mini viral. They had a design for a little kind of mug container thing, and they had made a couple. It was sort of not really a craft. It was pretty cool. They actually ended up having to, like, fulfill the order. It's like 1,200. They just fulfilled it once and said, I don't want to do it anymore. I said, was it profitable? They said, yeah, but I just didn't want to do it. What can you do? But the person still works for us, but we never would have stopped them from doing it. I sort of thought they were crazy. I was like, you might have turned that in, take it to Shark Tank and go do it. And I would even say, I know Shark Tank, I think, is coming to the end of its world, but I wish Shark Tank was around when I was a young person. There's a lot of wisdom in that show about this question you're asking right now.
Oh, there it is, and it's one of the most provocative questions we ask, and a lot of people get stumped on it. It really blows their minds. Um, Looking to the future, what's your next 6 to 12 months look like?
Uh, at the company or for myself?
Vision of the company.
Yeah, vision for the company. So our company has grown over that time.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we've always grown. It's not been easy. The company's been a grind. It's a very, very difficult field. They're in their challenge, but our skills and capability have also changed from where we were 6 years ago, what we were trying to achieve. We have a better offering today than we did 6 years ago. We had the heart 6 years ago, but we actually have some cool skills. And the industry is evolving too, as well, right? All industries are sort of innovating and evolving all the time. Ours is no different. But where we were sort of positioned at one side of the market, sort of basically a small startup, which we've done 60 of them, small startups, and been involved in it, we do extensive business consulting. And that business consulting is becoming relevant to a higher tier in our industry. There's some fairly large size businesses. I mean, ABA is not a huge business in the world of healthcare, but it's an important size practice field. And we're positioned to help people in those larger businesses. And those are a lot of our strategic conversations right now, are with players at a higher level. And we realize, to the extent that we're not there yet, we do believe that we're going to be there in the next 6, 12, 18 months. And really the only thing that stops us is just signing that next contract. But there's really great momentum.
Awesome. Happy for you. Hey, listen, this is as this interview comes to a close, if somebody wants to contact you, how would you suggest they get to you?
I think the easiest way to contact me like this is through my email at work, which is ben.macgowen@high5aba.com, which is high5aba.com.
All right, cool. Hey, Ben, thanks very much. We appreciate your time and your wisdom. And if anybody wants to talk to somebody about ABA, this is pretty interesting stuff. Thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you all later.
Thank you, Michael. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.